Welcome back to MHS, Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you turn to these videos as a gentle way to unwind and ease into sleep. So, before you drift off tonight, could you help me with a small favor? Just leave a quick interaction, a comment, a like, or let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. My goal is to hit around 200 likes within the first 24 hours. Simple actions like these help YouTube appreciate the content and spread the show to more people. Now then, let's dive into tonight's horror stories. 3 years have passed, but I still can't forget the face of the man in the black hoodie. Even though everyone says it was just a nightmare, I know what I saw on that security monitor that night was real. My name is Taylor. At the time, I was 16 years old and often took jobs house sitting and dog sitting for the Carson family. My dad was good friends with Mr. Carson, so I had been going to their house since I was a kid. The Carson family's mansion was in Jackson, Michigan. From the main gate to the house was a long driveway. The two-story house had a classic Victorian architectural style, with 3 bedrooms and a spacious guest room. It took me over an hour to drive from my house to theirs. Around 9 p.m., I made some popcorn and watched a movie on Netflix. The 2 dogs lay quietly next to me, but I noticed they kept perking up their ears as if they were listening to something. I muted the TV to hear better, but there was nothing. After a while, I decided to go to bed. The guest room was on the first floor. The 2 dogs slept with me. They lay on a furry rug next to the bed. Around midnight, I was woken up by a jingling sound. I realized it was the dogs' collars. They were both sitting straight up, ears perked, eyes staring at the door with a very cautious look. I lay motionless, straining to listen. The house was still silent, with only the tick-tock of the clock in the hallway. Then I heard a humming sound, like the static you hear when a radio loses its signal. I remembered the baby monitor that Mrs. Carson kept in the corner of the hallway, directly across from my room. This system not only showed images from the camera placed in the main living room on the first floor, but could also be controlled remotely to turn lights on and off in different rooms. I tiptoed out of the bedroom. I approached the security monitor in the hallway. On the screen was a pitch-black image of the main living room. After fumbling for a bit, I found the button to turn on the main living room light. I hesitated for a moment, then pressed the button. A blinding light from the large chandelier lit up the entire living room on the monitor, and in that moment, I saw him. A young man, wearing a black hoodie, was hunched behind the sofa. He looked up at the ceiling where the camera was mounted, and I looked at him on the small screen. He jumped up and ran out of the camera's view. My body reacted before my mind could think. I ran back to the bedroom and locked the door tightly, quickly grabbing my essentials into my backpack. There was no time to think. I opened the bedroom window and climbed out. I could still hear the 2 dogs barking loudly inside the house. I ran as fast as I could toward my car, not daring to look back. As soon as I got into the driver's seat, I immediately locked all the doors, started the engine, and sped away. I tried to call the Carsons, but my call went straight to voicemail. When I got home, I sent a long text message explaining everything that had happened to both Mr. and Mrs. Carson. The next morning, Mr. Carson called back. His voice sounded worried but also skeptical. "Taylor, we're very worried about you. We drove home right after we got your message. We checked the whole house, from the basement to the attic, and there were no signs of a break-in. Nothing was missing either, except for the 2 dogs being locked in the living room." Mrs. Carson took the phone and said, "Our security system is very good. No one could have broken in." So, they didn't believe me. But I remembered every detail of what I had seen on that security monitor. From that day on, I refused all of the Carson family's offers for dog sitting. Even though many years have passed, I still can't forget the moment I saw his face on that security monitor. The Carson family's skepticism couldn't erase the image of the man in the black hoodie. What I went through that night still haunts me. My name is Erica. I was born and raised in Texas with my parents, in a quiet residential neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. We lived in a small house with a spacious backyard that my dog, Molly, loved. This happened when I was 18. One day, I was walking Molly. The familiar road past two tall apartment buildings where I often saw my neighbors coming and going. That day, 3 men were smoking on the front porch. Their laughter echoed from a distance. 2 of them didn't notice me, but the other guy stared. He looked older than the other 2, probably in his late 30s, and was bald. His eyes made me a little scared. I quickly turned my face away, trying to walk faster. Suddenly he called from behind, "Hey little lady, your dog is so cute. Come here and let me pet it." While he was taunting me, the other 2 men burst out laughing. I immediately left and quickly ran home, not daring to look back. At first, I didn't tell my parents, thinking it was just a harmless joke, but I was completely wrong. The next day, I walked Molly again. Remembering the 3 men from yesterday, I brought pepper spray just in case. When I passed the same house, I silently prayed not to see that strange man, but he was already sitting on the rocking chair on the porch, his eyes staring at me. I quickly ran across the street as soon as I saw him. The sound of heavy footsteps behind me told me he was chasing me. In a panic, I tripped and fell. He was right behind me. I screamed for help, hoping someone would hear me. His dirty hand covered my mouth, followed by a laugh of amusement. Luckily, I remembered the pepper spray. I quickly took it out and sprayed it directly into his eyes. He yelled in pain and let go of me, cursing repeatedly. I quickly picked up Molly and ran home as fast as I could. As soon as I got home, I immediately told my parents what happened. My dad, a former Marine, was about to go handle the guy himself, but my mom advised me to go to the police station. There, I gave my statement to the officer and showed him the scratches on my knee, but he just took a few notes and told me they would patrol the area. A few months passed. I started working at a 7-Eleven to earn some extra money. One night after my shift, as I turned the corner near my house, I noticed an old truck driving very slowly behind me. At first, I didn't think anything of it, but when I got in front of my house, I looked back and saw 2 men in the truck staring at me. A familiar feeling of fear came over me. I knew for sure they were following me. I quickly went inside and told my parents. A few weeks later, my dad started watching the front of our house at night. He installed more motion sensor lights and security cameras. But those measures were not enough for what was about to happen. That terrifying night started around 2 a.m. Molly's fierce barking came from outside the window. I was in a deep sleep after a long, tiring shift. The barking became more and more urgent, as if it was signaling danger, but my exhaustion made me ignore Molly. I'm not sure how long after, Molly's voice woke me up again, but it took a few seconds for me to realize it was a weak whimper. I jumped up and ran to find Molly. I froze when I saw Molly lying motionless on the floor. A red liquid was spreading under her small body. Her eyes were wide open, looking at me with a look of painful despair. I started to cry and quickly picked Molly up. A dark shadow appeared from the corner of the room. The bald man walked out. He laughed with delight. "Did you think you could get away from me, little girl?" Terror took over my entire body. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. He lunged at me with terrifying speed. His heavy body pinned me down, making it hard to breathe. He repeatedly punched me in the face. The pain spread all over my head, and my ears were ringing. I felt blood flowing from my nose, and a salty taste spread through my mouth. With my last bit of strength, I tried to struggle and kicked wildly at him. When I saw him start to unbuckle his belt, my terror peaked. I screamed with all the strength I had left. His dirty hand covered my mouth. Tears streamed down my face. I thought my life was over. Suddenly, the bedroom door burst open. My dad yelled, his face red with anger, holding a gun pointed directly at the man. My mom stood behind him, her face pale with fear. 2 gunshots rang out, shaking the entire room. I pushed him off me and collapsed on the floor, shaking uncontrollably. My dad quickly rushed over and took the man down. My mom ran to me, hugged me tightly, and called the police. I looked at Molly. My little friend was still in a pool of blood, but wagged her tail slightly when she heard my voice. Molly was alive. A few minutes later, the police arrived and arrested the man. But it wasn't just him. They found his 2 accomplices tied up in the backyard. They had also been part of this terrifying plan. They intended to break in, kidnap, and assault me. Luckily, they were all caught and later sentenced. Molly was taken to the vet in time and made a full recovery. To this day, I still live with my parents because the fear of being alone still haunts me. Molly is old now, but still healthy. I spend more time with Molly, always appreciating and grateful for my loyal friend who saved my life. I never thought a dog could save me, both literally and figuratively. But Milo did. I remember the day Emma left with a terrifying silence as she packed her things into 2 suitcases in our Berkeley, California apartment. I sat on the sofa, my head bowed low. 5 years living together, I thought it was the beginning of a lifelong bond. But it was just my own illusion. "You can't keep living like this," were the last words she said before slamming the door. I knew she was right. My depression was getting worse. I was no longer the person she had loved, but had become an empty shell. The days that followed passed like a nightmare. I didn't go to work, didn't eat, didn't shower. No sleep or too much sleep. Darkness swallowed me little by little. Dark thoughts haunted my mind. The sleeping pills in the medicine cabinet became strangely appealing. I often wondered if things would be easier if I swallowed them all at once. After 3 weeks of living like that, Michelle, my best friend from college, dragged me out of the filthy apartment. She took me to a therapist, and I started taking medication, attending therapy. But progress was very slow. I still felt empty. "You need a companion, a pet, a dog or a cat or something," Michelle said when she stopped by to check on me. I smiled faintly. "I can't even take care of myself. How can I take care of another living creature? You'll have responsibility for another life. That will force you to create habits, to be active, and to think." A week later, she pulled me to the animal shelter in Oakland. And that's when I met Milo. Milo was a 2-year-old golden retriever. The staff at the shelter said Milo's previous owner had passed away, and she had been there for 2 months. When they brought Milo out of the kennel, she walked straight to me and rested her head on my knee, as if she understood. An invisible bond formed, and I took Milo home that day. The first few weeks were difficult, but Michelle was right. I was forced to create habits. Milo needed to be fed, taken for walks, and played with. Gradually, I started waking up on time, eating regularly, and going outside. Milo was always there, looking at me with gentle, understanding eyes, and my heart was slowly healing. A month after Milo arrived, I went back to work. On a Sunday afternoon in early October, I took Milo to Tilden Regional Park in the Berkeley Hills. We walked along the familiar trail with views of the San Francisco Bay. Milo happily ran ahead, occasionally looking back to make sure I was still following. We reached a large grassy area, with a children's playground in the distance with swings, slides, and a merry-go-round. Usually on Sundays, this area was full of children, but today it was strangely deserted. I unclipped Milo from her leash and threw a tennis ball for her to chase. Suddenly, as we got closer to the playground, Milo stopped. She stood still, growling, a deep and threatening sound coming from her throat. I had never seen her react like that. "Milo? What's wrong?" I asked, looking around. Nothing unusual, just a tall bush obscuring part of the view of the playground. Milo started barking fiercely, facing the bush. I pulled on the leash, trying to control her, but Milo pulled me forward with unexpected strength. "Milo, stop!" I commanded, but to no avail. She dragged me towards the bush, still barking madly. As we rounded the bush, Milo became even more agitated. I thought maybe a stray cat or squirrel had driven Milo crazy, but that wasn't it. Milo continued to bark, her eyes fixed on the swings. And then I saw it, a figure hanging from the highest swing. At first, in the afternoon sun, I thought it was a doll or a prank by kids, but as my eyes adjusted, my heart stopped. It was a man. hanging limply from the swing set, a rope around his neck. His body turned slowly in the gentle breeze, like a terrifying pendulum. I stood there, frozen. Milo continued to bark incessantly, as if trying to wake me from my shock. With trembling hands, I took out my phone and called 911. The next few minutes passed in a daze. I answered questions mechanically, my eyes not leaving the hanging figure. Milo had stopped barking and sat close to my feet, occasionally whimpering softly. The police arrived within 15 minutes, followed by an ambulance. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about the man on the swing. The news reported that his name was Benjamin, 34 years old, a software engineer working at a startup in San Francisco. He had been missing for 3 days before I saw his body. According to his family, he had battled severe depression for years. Battled severe depression. That phrase kept echoing in my head. I knew that feeling, the feeling of being swallowed by darkness bit by bit. I had been there, on the edge, looking down into the abyss and wondering if jumping in would be easier. Without Milo, I might have ended up like Benjamin. I'm Selena. I live with my 7-year-old son, Jason. My husband suddenly passed away in a car accident. On the day of my husband's funeral, I no longer had the strength or tears to cry. Watching Jason intently focused on his game console, the little boy showed no awareness or special emotion about the current situation. I rushed over and snatched the console out of his hands. "Jason, do you know where you are? Look, do you see who's lying in there?" I shouted angrily, glaring at the boy, my hand pointing towards the coffin. Jason frowned, stood up, glared at me angrily, and ran out of the church. I didn't chase after him, as I was on the brink of exhaustion after nearly 3 days without sleep. My mind is empty, my heart is bleeding, and my legs are numb. Suddenly, Jason's scream rang out. "Let go, Mom! Mom!" I was startled. My mind returned to reality. The guests at the funeral also panicked when they heard Jason scream. I ran out, and Jason was being held tightly by a woman. The boy was panicking and struggling relentlessly. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, rushing over to grab the woman's arm and hug Jason. The woman suddenly screamed loudly, crying as she pointed her finger at me. "Be a good mother. He will come to you if you don't watch over the boy. You'll lose your child, just like I did." The people present and I stood there in silence, unable to understand what the woman was saying. But seeing her pain and despair, it was clear she must have gone through something terribly horrifying. A few days after my husband's funeral, I tried to pull myself together and get back to work. But the absence of his companionship truly feels like a nightmare. Jason is usually playful, stubborn, and very unpredictable. The boy always resists and shows an uncooperative attitude, which makes me feel truly helpless. Many times I have been harsh, scolded him, and even almost took action against the boy. Each time like that, the distance between mother and son grew farther apart. One day, I found a tape about a children's program in the mailbox in front of the house. I wasn't sure who had sent it, but the recipient's name and address were correct, so I brought it inside. The program teaches children about letters, numbers, as well as social and emotional skills. I was quite impressed, so I played it for Jason. He seemed interested and brighter, instead of being glued to the gaming console. But Jason just switched from the gaming console to the TV, watching that reality show all day and laughing by himself. "Jason, I'm letting you know that you'll have to turn off the TV in the next 10 minutes. It's 9 p.m. and you've already spent nearly 8 hours on TV today." Jason suddenly burst into laughter. It seemed like nothing I said had gotten through to him. "Jason," I said sharply, reaching out to turn off the TV. Immediately, the boy stood up, his face filled with anger, stomping his feet and clenching his fists. "You're showing attitude towards me." I didn't finish my sentence before Jason yanked the remote from my hand and slammed it hard onto the floor. I refuse to be your mother." I burst into tears, repeating those words once again. Jason looked at me with teary eyes and ran off. "Merlin, I'm so tired. I wish you were here." I was completely exhausted, collapsed to the ground, and started crying uncontrollably. A long while later, after I had calmed down, I went up to Jason's room. "Jason, can I come in?" I patiently knocked on the door nearly 10 times, but all I got was silence. I opened the door and looked inside, panicked when I didn't see the boy. I ran down to the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom, the wardrobe, but Jason was nowhere to be found. It was already past 10 p.m. The last places to check were the backyard and the shed. I ran while calling out my son's name, hoping to find him, but once again, I was met with disappointment. I called the police, admitting that I had been negligent in raising and taking care of my son. I couldn't sleep that whole night, sitting in the living room waiting, my mind burning with worry. I picked up the broken TV remote, filled with deep regret for having said those harsh words. "You're feeling really sad, aren't you?" I startled, and looked around when I heard a man's voice. It turns out I had accidentally turned on the TV, and a television program appeared. A man in a brightly colored suit was sitting in a room full of colors, surrounded by puppets. "If you're feeling overwhelmed and exhausted from endless scolding and your parents' rules, come to Mr. Sampson, where you can have your own paradise." After the man's words, the puppets excitedly screamed and cheered in response. His smile was very subtle and eerie, as if he were looking directly at me, challenging me. "What the hell is this?" I exclaimed in astonishment. So, for almost a week now, I'd been letting my son watch this harmful stuff. I immediately called the police. "Mr. Sampson, why are you only telling us this now? Your son is the 5th missing case linked to this name." The next morning, I was at the police station, along with the parents of the other 4 children. "Is it you?" I was surprised to see the woman from outside the church on the day of my husband's funeral. "He came, didn't he?" The woman looked at me with a cold, unwavering gaze. The police informed me that the government had ordered the recall of all products related to Mr. Sampson, and his identity was still under investigation. The police were also analyzing the details of his program to identify possible locations where the children might be. After 3 days, Mr. Sampson's identity was confirmed. His real name was Samson Stone, 45 years old, and he was the owner of a company that produced children's programs and toys. Samson was an orphan. He had been adopted and had suffered severe abuse, nearly losing his life. At the age of 15, he ran away from his foster family and lived as a homeless person. A person with such a painful past. What would he do to those children? Nearly a week passed, and I neglected both my work and myself, constantly waiting for calls from the police, crying every night. Where is my son, and where are the other children? What will happen to them? One late evening, I received an urgent call from the police. They reported that they had found an abandoned house deep in the forest, suspected to be the place where the children were being held. I immediately rushed to the scene with the investigation team. When we arrived, the sight before us was an old, crumbling house with faint cries coming from inside. In a dark room, the children were huddled together, trembling in fear. I looked around and saw Jason. "Jason!" I cried out through my tears and ran to hug my son tightly. Looking at the other children, I saw their empty, exhausted eyes, as if they had just gone through a terrible nightmare. Some of the children clung to their parents as soon as they arrived, while others were still too frightened to fully comprehend what was happening. In another room, filled with old toys and a large screen, was where Mr. Sampson's show had once been broadcast. The puppets hung limply on the walls, their hollow black eyes seeming to stare blankly at everyone. In the end, Mr. Sampson was caught while trying to flee at the airport. At the police station, he calmly laughed, showing no remorse. "I just wanted to give the children a happier life," he said. He spoke calmly, but his eyes were cold and calculating, revealing a hidden agenda. The case was closed, but the aftermath left unforgettable memories in the hearts of both Jason and me. We had to go through months of therapy to help Jason recover emotionally and regain a sense of normalcy in his life. I decided to spend more time understanding and bonding with my son. Samson was, in fact, a victim of his own tragic life, a product of enduring injustice and pain as a child. The horror Mickey mask. Who's hiding behind it? "Dennis, where are you?" I yelled, feeling so worried and helpless, looking for my 6-year-old. It was Sunday, so I took my kid to the playground because I promised him if he got good grades. Every time I went to the playground, park, or supermarket, I ended up playing hide and seek, all annoyed. When I run out of patience, I'll just call the radio station to find the lost kid. "Dennis, you want to make this your last trip to the amusement park?" I was so mad when I found him at the toy counter. "Mom, check it out, Giant Mickey," my son shouted. He was standing next to this man who looked like he was around 6 feet tall. The person had on a Mickey Mouse mask, but it looked all weird and messed up, just black and white. The black clothes and his tall frame made him look really giant. I figured he was a toy store employee. Out of nowhere, he hoisted my kid up on his neck and posed for a pic. The boy was giggling and threw his hand up like Mickey. I snapped a quick pic, helped my kid down, said thanks, and then we bounced. Lately, the local police are on the hunt for a murderer. Nobody knows what he really looks like. All we know is he usually shows up wearing a messed up Mickey mask in all black. I was totally speechless when I heard the news that night. I compared the footage from the CCTV the news showed with the pics I took of my kid that morning, and I just lost it and started crying. I checked my kid to make sure he was all right. Then I called the police to report what happened. My husband's away on a business trip, and it freaks me out to think my kid and I ran into that murderer. Please keep us safe. I begged the police for help. After the police left, I tried calling my husband, but the line was busy. I sent him a pic of my kid with Mickey and a message about what was going on, hoping he'd wrap up his work and get home soon. I locked the door real careful and checked it again. Then I hit up the store to order 3 more CCTVs and set up a time for them to come install them tomorrow. Out of nowhere, I felt like the house was way too big for just the 2 of us, and there were so many places to hide. I think I gotta call the whole construction crew to switch up the layout of the house. I went up to Dennis's room, and he wasn't asleep yet. I could hear him giggling as I got close to the door. "What are you doing, Dennis?"
"Mom, look."
I jumped and shouted loud. My kid was wearing a Mickey mask on his head and dancing around. I rushed over, yanked off the mask, and tossed it on the floor. "Who let you play with these gross things?"
I shouted, my eyes wide and my finger pointing right at my kid's face. The boy looked scared and his eyes were starting to fill up with tears. Dennis ran to the bed and wrapped himself up in the blanket. I grabbed the mask and asked Dennis where it came from, like really urgently, but all I got back was my kid sobbing. I called the police back and handed them the mask. I couldn't calm down, and my body was shaking with every stutter. I asked the cops for a protective order, and they totally agreed right away. The whole week after that was just awful. My kid and I switched to online learning and working from home. Dennis wouldn't stop fussing and throwing tantrums because he felt cooped up, which was driving me as nuts as being strained by a 44-pound fishing line. My kid and I were getting more and more at odds and distant. He kept asking about the mask and wanted me to give it back. "Stop yelling and acting out, Dennis. You still haven't told me where you got that mask." "It's my secret," he yelled with all his stubbornness and bolted upstairs. I flopped down on the sofa, covering my face, feeling totally helpless. "Dana," my husband called out. He got back from his 3-month business trip. I ran over and hugged him tight, then just started crying. After chatting for a bit, my husband said he wanted to head upstairs to see our kid. A few minutes later, I went to Dennis's room and Mickey, the killer, was right in front of me with my kid on his neck. "Mom," Dennis waved, looking super happy. "I'm back," the killer said, sounding just like my husband.
I'm Jack, 28, a software engineer in Austin, Texas. Tonight I drank more than usual at the bar near work. I was driving home, my mind hazy from the alcohol. That was a serious mistake. My car swayed on the highway. I tried to focus on the middle lane, my stinging eyes trying to stay wide open. Suddenly, a red car zoomed out from the right lane. No turn signal, no warning. I slammed on the brakes, feeling the tires slide on the pavement. A few seconds later, the car spun sideways, its rear tires scraping against the concrete median with a piercing screech of metal. The loud noise made me a bit more alert. My heart pounded as I realized what was happening. I pulled over to the side of the road, my hands trembling, clutching the steering wheel. Cold sweat ran down my back. I needed to sober up before continuing. Looking around, I saw the neon sign of a Wendy's about 200 yards away. I quickly steered my car to the restaurant. The large parking lot was almost empty, with only an old brown car parked far off in the left corner. Its headlights were still on, but there was no one in the car. I parked near the entrance. The automatic glass doors of the restaurant opened with a soft hiss. The bright white lights inside the restaurant made me squint. The cold air from the air conditioning hit my face, making me a bit more awake. Behind the counter, a young girl stood. Her uniform shirt had dark brown dried stains on the shoulder and chest. Maybe ketchup. "Hi, what can I get for you?" "I'll have a beef burger and a medium soda. Anything else?" "We also have fresh hot cheese." I shook my head. She nodded, then turned her back towards the kitchen. I looked around the restaurant while waiting for my food. Besides me, there were 3 other customers sitting at separate tables. An old man in his 60s, wearing a black leather jacket, sat in the left corner. At a table near the window, a woman in a blue nurse's uniform sat looking out. In the middle of the restaurant, a young man in a team sports t-shirt sat in front of a tray of tacos. He kept scratching his left arm, leaving red marks. He scratched so hard, I saw blood seeping through his shirt. Something wasn't right with these people. All of them had grayish-blue skin, just like the employee. "Can you wait about 5 minutes? The meat's still grilling." The employee's voice, which I had just been thinking about, startled me. I nodded. "I'm going to the restroom for a bit. It's at the end of the hallway to your left." I thanked her and followed her directions. Pushing the door open, The stench immediately made me cover my nose. The toilet was overflowing with a thick, reddish-brown liquid. Toilet paper was scattered all over the floor, soggy and strangely colored. The mirror above the sink was cracked into many pieces, reflecting a distorted image of me. The faucet ran something rust-colored, with a strong metallic smell. I held my breath, quickly exiting, unable to bear it any longer. Reaching the hallway, I stopped, gasping for air. When I returned to the dining area, I froze midway. Something had changed. The restaurant was now full of people. Every table had customers, easily 20 to 30 people. Where did they all come from? I'd only been gone for 3 minutes, but the more I looked, the more frightened I became. These people weren't normal. Their skin was grayish-blue, like spoiled meat. Some had open wounds bleeding. The man at table 3 was missing an eye. The woman sitting near me had a broken arm, bones sticking out. They were all eating intently. The sounds of chewing and swallowing echoed through the restaurant. "Sir Jack, your food's ready." I jumped. The employee had just called me by name, but I'd never told her my name. I walked to the counter on shaky legs. She handed me a red plastic tray. The burger was split open, the bun black, oozing a dark red liquid that smelled putrid. The soda cup held a thick black liquid with dead flies floating on top. "Thanks for visiting our store," she grinned, revealing blackened teeth. "You'll love working here." Working? I dropped the tray to the floor, food splattering everywhere. Immediately, I ran towards the exit, but it wouldn't open. I pushed hard, twisted the handle, kicked the glass door. But the door was like it was welded shut. "Jack, you can't go anywhere." I turned around. All the customers were standing up, looking at me. The old man from the corner table approached, and I clearly saw a large bullet hole in his forehead, brain matter smeared on his face. The nursewoman turned towards me, a rope tightly wrapped around her neck, the skin around the knot dark purple. "Welcome to the night shift," the young man in the team shirt said. He raised his hand. His left arm was just white bone from the elbow down. "You'll be serving customers just like us." I fell into extreme panic, turning back and continuously pounding on the door, screaming loudly, "No! I don't belong here! Let me go!" I ran to the window looking out at the parking lot. My car wasn't in its spot anymore. Instead, a car lay overturned. The front was crumpled as if it had just been in a crash, the windshield shattered, and through the broken driver's side window, I saw a dead body wearing a blue shirt and jeans, exactly like what I was wearing. Not just similar, it was me. I was dead. I hadn't been able to avoid the accident with the pickup truck. Now you get it, right? The employee moved closer, her feet not touching the ground. "We're all dead. Mr. Pete was shot in a store robbery. Linda ended it herself because of stress. Tommy died in a motorcycle accident. And now you join us." "I don't want to," I screamed, tears streaming down my face. "No one wants to. But this is where people who die in late-night accidents have to work. Forever." She handed me a red apron stained with red streaks. "Your shift starts now. Customers are waiting." I looked around. More people had appeared. All dead bodies. They looked at me with empty eyes. They were waiting for me to serve them. I screamed, thrashing, unable to accept the truth. Suddenly, I felt a massive headache. I clutched my head and collapsed. After opening my eyes, I found myself lying on the pavement next to my car, which was still intact. A police officer was leaning over me, shining a flashlight in my face. "Are you okay? We've seen you lying here for 15 minutes. Someone driving by called the police." I slowly sat up, my head throbbing. Looking around, I saw I was in the Wendy's parking lot. But the restaurant was completely dark. The sign read, "Closed." "Have you been drinking?" the officer asked, his gaze serious. I think I fell when I got out of the car. Maybe I passed out. Do you need an ambulance?" "No, I'm fine. Just a little dizzy. I'll have to take your license, and you'll get a summons for driving under the influence." I ran my hand through my hair, feeling ashamed and confused. The police called a taxi for me. While waiting, I couldn't stop looking towards the restaurant. Through the dark windows, I swore I saw a faint figure standing behind the counter. A blonde girl in a red uniform, as if waiting for the next shift. But when I looked closer, it was just the reflection of the streetlights on the glass. Maybe so.
I'm Merlin, and I live out in the countryside. It takes about 30 minutes to drive to the nearest town. But I don't feel lonely because I've got a group of friends, and we're really close. Samson and I are both single. Vincent and his wife, Gina, have been married for over a year. After graduating with a degree in biology, we headed to the countryside to work on an agricultural project, and it turned out to be really convenient. It was the weekend, and Samson came over to visit. He and I started hanging out more since Vincent needed to spend time with his family. "Are you still talking to Vincent?" I asked Samson. "I was going to ask you the same thing. He's been missing for the past few days." "He's got a family now, and if they have another kid, finishing the rest of the project is going to be tough for us." I made a little joke, and both Samson and I just burst out laughing. Suddenly, there was a knock on my door. But it wasn't just a regular knock. It was fast, strong, and urgent. "Merlin, is Samson here? I need your help." Samson and I looked at each other in surprise. It was Gina, and her voice sounded distorted, like she had been crying. I opened the door, and Gina looked disheveled and smelled awful. I almost threw up. Her whole body was covered in dark red, and her neck and face had these red stains, like something had been splashed on her. Samson and I were shocked and asked Gina what had happened. Gina cried out, "Quickly, save Vincent! He... Samson and I immediately rushed to Vincent's house. It was less than a mile away. Inside the house, the scene looked like something straight out of a Japanese anime. The floor, the kitchen table, the walls, the furniture, everything was covered in red, just like Gina, and there was a really strong stench. The couple's pet dog was lying dead on the floor. I called out Vincent's name, and Samson, with a shocked voice, said, "He's here!" I ran into the bedroom, and Vincent's body was emaciated. Just wrinkled skin remained. His eyes were bulging, and his lips were black. Vincent was breathing very weakly, and with a lot of difficulty. Gina came in too, rushed over to hug her husband, and started crying. I quickly called the medical station, hoping they'd send a doctor since Vincent couldn't move in his condition. More than 10 minutes later, 2 doctors and 2 nurses showed up to give Vincent emergency treatment, and Gina also got a checkup. Samson and I waited in the living room. We looked at the awful scene in the house and kept asking, what on earth happened? Just 4 days ago, on Tuesday, we were still meeting to discuss the agricultural project. Vincent was fine then. He was happily talking about his plans to have children. How could a tall, muscular guy end up like this in just a few days? After Gina was examined by the doctor and took her medicine, she came back to the living room, looking exhausted, crying, and telling us everything. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, Vincent told his wife he was going hunting in the forest and took the family's golden retriever with him. By 6 o'clock that evening, Gina still hadn't seen Vincent come back. She figured he might have wandered around a bit or gone to check on the project's nursery. At 6:30, the dog, looking panicked and barking nonstop, ran back home, but Vincent was nowhere to be found. The dog's behavior led Gina into the forest. After walking a short distance, Gina started to hear Vincent calling for help. He was stuck in a hole in the ground. According to Gina, The hole was pretty deep, with animal carcasses at the bottom and a terrible stench. After struggling for a while, Gina found a rock to help Vincent get up. Using both hands, he managed to swing up to the edge of the hole, and with Gina pulling him up, Vincent finally escaped after being stuck down there for over 3 hours. That night, Vincent went straight to bed after taking a shower, without having dinner. Gina thought it was because he had lost a lot of strength. Early the next morning, Vincent's strange behavior started. He didn't talk or react at all. He just lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. Vincent also didn't eat or drink anything for 2 days. But on the third and fourth days, Gina noticed that half of the food in the cupboard had gone missing. At first, she thought the dog might have eaten the food, but then she found trash bags and bones that Vincent had hidden under the bed. Vincent ate a lot. For most of those 2 days, he just kept eating and eating, but he vomited several times, and his body was visibly emaciated. Gina cried out. I suggested taking Vincent to the medical station, but he just sat there eating and looked at me with this lifeless gaze. Suddenly there was a loud crash, and Vincent screamed in pain. The three of us rushed into the bedroom. The doctors and nurses were standing in a corner of the room. Vincent was continuously vomiting red liquid, but this time it had horrifying creatures in it. They looked like maggots but were gray and larger. Vincent lay down on the bed, gradually fainted, and after examining him, the doctor said he had passed away. Samson and I looked at each other in shock, and Gina couldn't cry anymore and just collapsed. After Vincent's funeral, we asked Gina to take us to the hole where Vincent had fallen. Down there, we found a pile of animal carcasses, including deer, rabbits, and even wild boars. The stench and the countless wriggling gray maggots combined. Samson ran to get gasoline, poured it all down the hole, and set fire to everything. We couldn't accept Vincent's sudden and mysterious death. The forensics team took samples of Vincent's blood, flesh, and some of the gray maggots for further examination. Was it some kind of terrible parasite that we didn't know about? Almost a week after Vincent's funeral, Gina became apathetic and stopped talking to anyone. We hoped that Gina was just too sad about Vincent's death, and not that some kind of parasite was eating away at her.
I am Julia, 22 years old, a girl who used to live life to the fullest with endless parties. Music, alcohol, and loud laughter were the things that made me feel free, unbound. I have many friends, but most of them are just people I've met through a few parties. I didn't care much because to me, life was about enjoying every moment, until that fateful night that changed everything. That day, I accepted an invitation to a party from Richard, a guy I had just met the day before at the bar. He had a dazzling smile and a gaze that knew how to capture attention. Richard offered, and I did not hesitate to accept. I was used to invitations like that, no need to think too much about it. My memories after that shattered, as if someone had turned off the switch in my mind. The last thing I remember is holding a cocktail, with the thumping music making it nearly impossible to hear anyone's conversation. A wave of dizziness hit, and then everything went dark. I woke up with a headache pounding like a hammer. A burning sensation ran all over my body, as if every muscle had been tortured. When I opened my eyes, I found myself curled up in a bush, trying to look closely at my surroundings, which were by the side of a highway. The cold wind sliced into my skin, making me shiver. I raised my hand and slapped my head a few times to wake myself up. Looking at my body, the short dress was dirty and torn to pieces. No phone, no purse, Nothing at all. I sat up, my body trembling and my mind spinning. While being in a state of panic, I couldn't recall what had happened. A terrible feeling rose in my chest, a flood of questions about what I had been through, what horrible things had happened. All those questions spiraled deep into my mind, but there were no answers. I stood up, staggering toward the highway, with a faint hope of finding someone to help. Standing by the roadside, I waved at the first car that passed. Luckily, the sleek black car slowly came to a stop. The window rolled down, and a young man looked at me with a curious gaze, asking what I needed help with. I quickly ran over, almost begging him to give me a ride. The man gave me a brief, evaluating look, then smiled lightly and agreed. I sighed in relief, feeling that I still had a bit of luck left. But just a few minutes after the car started moving, I realized I'd made a mistake. He asked a few questions, and I naively told him everything about my situation. No one knew I was here, no money or phone, no way to protect myself. He suddenly fell silent for a moment, then burst into laughter, a laugh that sent a chill down my spine. "You have nice breasts. Hey, what color is your underwear?" His voice was slippery and disgusting. I froze, my heart pounding so hard I thought I could hear it in my chest. I stared at him, and he reached out and placed his hand lightly on my knee, his fingers sliding in a sickly, slow motion. Instinct surged within me. Without thinking, I forcefully pushed his hand away and pulled the handbrake abruptly. The car jerked to a stop, the tires screeching against the road. I opened the door and rushed straight out. He shouted loudly behind me, but I didn't dare look back. On the side of the road was a small forest, dark and dense. I used all my remaining strength to run desperately into the forest, ignoring the branches hitting my face, ignoring the pain from the high heels digging into my feet. I didn't dare stop, didn't dare look back. I didn't know how far I had run until my legs felt like they were being torn apart and my lungs felt like they were about to explode. I knelt down in the bushes, hiding in the darkness, tears streaming down my face. In the distance, I heard him call out, his voice full of menace. "Where are you, bitch? I'll just lick you once." I held my breath, clutching my body, praying for protection from God. A moment later, the sound of the car door slamming shut was followed by the roar of the engine as the car sped off. I still didn't dare move, unable to believe that everything was over. I sat there until the sunlight filtered through the tree branches and the silence enveloped the entire forest. As the sun rose higher, I crawled my way out of the forest. I stood by the roadside, my clothes dirty and torn, my eyes sore from crying all night. I raised my hand to flag down another car, and this time I swore I would only trust women. A middle-aged woman stopped. When she saw me, she opened the car door, her eyes filled with concern. I got into the car, my body still trembling. She asked if I was okay, but I couldn't answer. I was completely exhausted. A few days later, I was hospitalized for a health checkup. I needed to know if something had happened to my body, whether I had been assaulted or injected with something. The results showed that I had not been violated, but that didn't ease the haunting thoughts in my mind. That event changed me forever. I was no longer the girl chasing after meaningless parties, no longer trusting strangers just because they smiled at me. I understood that my own safety was the most important thing. I felt lucky to have survived, but I also hated myself for the naivety that had led me into that terrifying situation. That lesson I will never forget. I had changed. No more party nights, no more impulsive decisions. I chose a different lifestyle, one that I could control, so that I would never have to face the fear I felt that day again.
Alden is a perfect guy with all the qualities that any woman would want in a partner. Especially at the age of 35, Alden's masculinity and maturity attract a lot of admirers. Alden is in a relationship with Erica, a girl who has everything in perfect proportion. On March 13th, will you be mine? Your heart will be mine. That is the sweet proposal Alden made to Erica. Unlike other couples, Alden and Erica have been getting to know each other for 11 months. Alden didn't have to persistently court the beautiful woman to win her over. Erica also did not pose any challenges or difficulties. In fact, she had fallen for Alden from the very beginning. Their relationship just needs one more formal proposal to become a perfect couple. Even though Alden has cared for and pampered Erica to the utmost for the past 11 months, Erica has also continuously given Alden the green light, showing her affection for him. But their relationship remains ambiguous. Erica is determined not to propose first. According to her viewpoint, it is the man's responsibility to take the initiative. Erica takes care of her appearance, participates in classes on sports, cooking, art, and more. She continually improves herself, setting the goal to always be perfect and attractive. There are also many suitors around Erica, but she only has eyes for Alden. As for Alden, there are times when he shows indifference in the relationship. His words are very sweet and loving, but they are also full of underlying meaning and a hint of teasing. But Erica doesn't realize this. To her, Alden occupies her entire heart and mind. Alden has not given Erica any confirmation, which leaves her constantly worried. Erica is very afraid of losing Alden. It's not hard to see that the women around him have feelings for him. Moreover, their relationship is not official and clear, so Erica cannot assert her claim. A princess is always associated with images of beauty and perfection, but it's not only princesses. There are also witches with an enchanting, deadly allure. Erica has a blend of both. She once planned and staged a car accident. The victim was a young and beautiful girl, and as a result, she was left paralyzed from the waist down, just for standing too close to Alden at a party. Not stopping there, Erica did not hesitate to gift a few scars on the arms, legs, and even the face to the girls who intended to flirt with Alden. One rival, who is extremely determined, declared that she would confront Erica and pursue Alden to the end. She is Daria, who possesses everything Erica has and more, namely the allure of youth and beauty. But just a week later, Daria vanished without a trace. The police searched for Daria for 6 months, and the clothes they found in the forest contained Daria's DNA. But it still has not been determined whether she is alive or not. Are you satisfied with what you've done? Alden's unexpected question left Erica stunned for a few seconds. Of course, I'm willing to do anything for you. Alden knows something. He just smiled and nodded. The moment Erica had been waiting for arrived. Alden proposed right in the car when he brought Erica home. Of course, she agreed without a second thought. But why March 13th? Why did you ask me to be your girlfriend on March 13th instead of today? That day is very special to me, and I want you to be a part of that specialness too. Alden's words melted Erica's heart. She loved Alden very much. On March 13th, Alden invited Erica to his home for dinner. Alden even prepared a beautiful dress for Erica to wear that day. At exactly 7 p.m., Erica arrived at Alden's house. As she entered, Erica heard music and saw romantic candlelight, which made her heart race. But she was very surprised by the happy birthday message decorated on the wall. Alden stepped forward, holding a birthday cake with a lit candle in the shape of the number 36 on top. You didn't tell me your exact birthday. You are the most wonderful gift. Will your heart be mine? Erica happily nodded and embraced Alden. After many days of waiting, hoping, and worrying, Erica became Alden's girlfriend. Erica can confidently say that they are a couple. They had dinner together. Erica continuously talked about their future plans and dreams with immense enthusiasm. Alden simply smiled lightly and did not respond. "Eat quickly, because you're about to leave soon." Erica looked at Alden in confusion, not understanding what he meant. "I will take you to a very wonderful place. Let's cut the cake first." Alden placed the cake in front of Erica. He went around to the back of Erica's chair, leaned in close to her ear, and whispered, "Are you ready?" Erica had no time to react. A knife was plunged straight into her left chest. An hour later, Alden stepped out of the house with a satisfied expression, his mouth still smeared with blood. Alden drove away with the body of a woman without a heart in the trunk of the car. The cycle of the next 11 months continued as Alden searched for another heart, the 13th heart. My name's Lewis, 27 years old. I graduated from University of California, Berkeley, majoring in museum collections and studies. A few months ago, I was transferred to work in the Smithsonian, one of the most well-known museums in the United States. Since I would be working in R&D here, I felt pretty excited about it. On my first day of work, I decided to have a walk around the museum, seeing the vast collection of it. I happened to come across Fiona, an employee who was the same age as mine, with 1 year experience. She also shared the same position as I was. We got to know each other and quickly felt like a good match. Fiona showed me around the place, introducing the artifacts along the way. To be honest, I wasn't paying much attention to the things she said. I was more attracted to her joyous face and those beautiful brown eyes. A few minutes later, we're given tasks by administration to receive the latest artifacts just arriving this morning. Fiona took me to the artifact collection room. In this room, there's a lot of very, very precious artifacts of huge historical value, requiring great care and handling. Fiona would run through the initial inspection while I did the note-taking for categorization. The last artifact we received was a wooden cube with strange marking on the surface. Each side measured about 1.3 feet. The object was made of wood, covered in a rather thick layer of dust. We felt kind of weird about this artifact. None of us had any information about it. On the right side, there was a rotatable metal knob. I guess it was the artifact opening mechanism, so I did turn it a bit, trying to open it. Fiona immediately voiced her concern, yet it was too late, for I had already committed. For each turn came a small click, as if you're winding up an antique music box. I was fascinated by this object, while Fiona was really spooked by this. The knobs had been turned all the way and no longer moved at all. I and Fiona attentively watched over the box. There wasn't anything happening after a few seconds. Then, suddenly, a clown jumped out from the box, followed by a sinister laughter. Startled, Fiona fell backward, which also startled me. There was a rather big clown shoved within the classic Jack-in-the-Box, giving out a grin, bobbing back and forth on the spring-powered mechanism. Fiona was disturbed by the laughter, in stark contrast to my fascination. The clown figure was kinda ugly, creepy dark reflection with two big sunken dark eyes. The clown had a wide open gape, which the sinister laughter came from. To be honest, it's kinda creepy when you see it further and further. My guess was this Jack-in-the-Box was an antique toy, which we quickly left aside to focus onto our work. It was the first day of work. Because I want to show off a little bit with my new colleague, I stayed all the way late into the night, until both of us were exhausted by the work after tons of documentation about all the artifacts. So I decided to invite Fiona to dinner, which she declined, for her boyfriend would come to pick her up. Oh, it was a bummer. Fiona had a boyfriend already. So she left the scene first, leaving me alone with bitter disappointment. The next day I went to work early, opening the office with the jack-in-the-box right in front of my door. Okay, who left it here? Because aside from me and Fiona last night, nobody would be here ever since, huh? Fiona arrived right after that, and when I asked her about the box, she wasn't sure either. Ever since we're out of the office yesterday, nobody would touch it then. After a quick inspection, we found that the box remained intact. We left it aside and dived into our work. Around lunchtime, I came to the archive room and unexpectedly, the box appeared there again. This time, I did a more careful observation of the object. There was some unintelligible marking on the box, as well as a number 0 on the top of it. This object really intrigued me. It must be someone really intrigued by it in the museum staffs that they left it all over the place like this. Suddenly, the knob rotating on itself, clicking over each notch. This startled me, frozen me on my track, glued my gaze into the strange artifact. Fiona then called my name from afar and snapped me out of my trance. The box suddenly stopped turning on its own, too. Fiona asked me why I was idling for such a long time. I answered back with my experience and questions about the mysterious box. She put that aside immediately, telling me about the incoming expo. We would have a lot of work to do. The mysterious box was an unnecessary distraction. I left. Nonetheless, questions about the box ringing within my head. That day, we finished our work very late. Yet we're contented. We'd made good preparation for the incoming exhibition. So needless to say, our frustration when we arrived to work the next day. Everything we'd prepared was now all over the place, some heavily damaged with blood running all over. In the corner was a body of a robust man, wearing dark clothes with a black-colored balaclava that was now torn heavily from his badly bruised and lacerated body. On his neck was a bite mark that was too wide and deep. The bite mark clearly wasn't of human origin. The police arrived quickly, cordoned off the crime scene, and we had no other choice but to cancel the exhibition. The museum suffered heavily due to many precious artifacts suffering irreparable damage. A quick investigation told us that the dead man was indeed a museum thief. Cause of death was announced to be heavy exsanguination, yet the evidence toward the perpetrator was nowhere to be found. The police kept every one of us round up for investigation. The days afterward were hell. None of us, me and Fiona including, could have enjoyed the atmosphere here. And the creepy things didn't stop there. Another day, our project manager also disappeared. He hadn't been around for many days now. Also, no traces of him running away were discovered. I had just been working for half a month, but many bad things had been going on here already. One late night, when I was walking across the hallway to go home, suddenly I spotted something down in the darkness. Attentively listening, I immediately recognized it to be the jack-in-the-box. I wasn't wrong. It was right there, down the hallway. I suddenly felt something wasn't right about this artifact. Carefully picked it up. I could feel the knob automatically turning. The sensation made the hair on my back puff up. Even weirder, I could see the number on it slowly turning into number 2. Suddenly, over the dark corridor, there appeared a dark shadow, which seemed to be a man, a very tall man, dressed up in raggedly strange clothes. I stopped dead on my track in a sudden dread, before slowly regaining my composure, getting closer, and yelling out to see who that person was. A loud, crazy laughter echoed from the dark corridor, hit me like a truck, prompted me to drop the box onto the floor. The laughter was exactly like the one from the jack-in-the-box. I was frozen in dead, unable to move any muscles. On the other side, as soon as Fiona called out for me, the shadow and the creepy laughter disappeared. Instead, it was her silhouette appearing on the wall. Everything happened way too fast for me to know what happened. I wasn't sure if it was real or just all my imagination. So I decided not to tell Fiona what had happened. But I told her that I was going to put the Jack-in-the-Box aside to archive room and head home soon. When I headed for home, Fiona was there waiting for her boyfriend. The next morning, Fiona didn't go to work. I was shocked when I was told that Fiona had been admitted to the ER last night. When I came to visit, Fiona was in a deep coma with countless wounds on her body. On her neck was a similar bite mark to that dead museum thief. Her boyfriend told me when he came to pick her up, he heard a call for help and some crazy laughter in the dark. When he found her, she was already in a deep shock, blood covered all over her body. I came back to work with a lot of thoughts in my head. First thing first, I needed to test my theory, so I brought out the box, seeing the number lingering between 2 and 3. So if Fiona completely passed away from the assault, the number would completely turn to 3? I decided to turn the box's knob, prompting the creepy figure to pop out, which I looked at closely, trying to figure out what it truly was. Later this afternoon, the police discovered the body of our project manager on the rooftop of the museum complex. He died due to the combination of blood loss and similar wounds, just like Fiona and the thief. Also, at the same day, a man with a lot of wounds and healing scars came forward to meet me. He confessed to be the second thief of that night and luckily survived the attack. He wanted me to discuss a few things. I took him into my office under the escort of the police. The man could no longer exude his emotion after the badly mauled face, yet I could read the fear, the terror within his eyes. His name's Owen, and the other thief who couldn't make it was Gary. That night, they planned the heist meticulously, and Gary, upon seeing the box, put it into the trophy bag. It was almost perfect, until suddenly, the creepy laughter came together with the sound of a winding knob. Owen could clearly remember the giant of a man, dressed up in an ancient outfit of a clown, a jester, attacking both of them. He was supposed to be another victim, but he fought tooth and nail to escape death. Owen lifted up his sleeve, showing up a giant bite mark, still bloodied, and had no time to heal yet. I knew Owen came to me due to the fact that I was the only one who would believe him. As we were exchanging our words, suddenly, the jester creepy laugh echoed from the dark corner. We turned around and were greeted with the sight of the Jack-in-the-Box. Okay, how the hell did that thing come here without any of us noticing? The terror-induced clown stood looking at us, twisted and turned its body side to side as if taunting us. Do you think that Lewis and Owen could have escaped the attack of the clown? What would happen to Fiona? Let's discuss in the comments section below.
Mm-hmm.